Imagine a world where every young man is guided through life's crucial transitions with powerful, meaningful rituals. A world where the journey from boyhood to manhood is marked by ceremonies that instill resilience, responsibility, and a sense of belonging. In our modern society, these rites of passages have all but disappeared, leaving many young men struggling with identity and purpose. What happened to these transformative traditions, and why are they so important to our personal and collective well being? In this video, we'll dive into the history of rites of passage, explore their significance across cultures, and look at how reviving a modern day rite of passage could change the lives of young men today. If you look across cultures that existed hundreds and even thousands of years ago, virtually all of them had some form of rite of passage, a transition that happened from boyhood to manhood, which is all but lost within today's modern culture. A rite of passage that some of us may still be familiar with would be the Native American Vision Quest. And it looked different within each tribe, within each area. However, the elders of a community often took a young boy and brought them out into the wilderness for a multi-day experience of fasting and asking questions to nature and coming back with their own answers. A marked rite of passage from boyhood to manhood within those cultures. The Vision Quest is a deeply spiritual practice that helps a young man develop a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, and a deeper clarity around who they are, what they stand for, and where they're going in life. If you're interested in learning more about the different historical rite of passage experiences that have existed, I'd recommend you to go out and research and check out. There's tons of information that you can find to learn more about what all other cultures have done to aid with the maturation process. Most ceremonies and rite of passage have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is often referred to as the stage of separation, where the young individual is removed from the traditional family context and the roles that they would normally play in the day-to-day and placed into a new physical and social environment where there's a sense of newness, a sense of novelty, where they're forced to develop new skills and behaviors. The middle phase is referred to often as liminality or the threshold experience, where there is a deep, intense experience that the individual must go through. In the Native American experience, that is that 4-day fast or however many day fast in that context. It is really, in some ways, simulating a pseudo-death experience where our old identity, all of the old stories, all of the old patterns, all of the old beliefs have an opportunity to be shed, to be let go of. Because it's in that death that we actually create space for something new to arise. And that is a huge practice of maturity when we start to let go of our old beliefs that we've been clinging on to and start to forge a new identity as an adult. The third stage, the end of the rite of passage experience, is often referred to as a reintegration, where the individual has an opportunity to bring back all of the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience that they've gathered from the threshold and reintegrate that into their day-to-day life and form that new identity and establish themselves as that individual who's now gone through transition and transformation, and also be recognized by their peers and their elders having gone through this transformation. A common theme amongst all of these rite of passage experiences is really that initiation into manhood, an initiation into deeper maturity and becoming a self-led individual. Unfortunately, in our modern day culture, we've really lost touch with that. Industrialization has shifted a focus on community-oriented living to an individual focus where we're really seeking to maximize self-interest and productivity at all costs. And the growing urbanization, a migration towards cities, has stripped our connection from the land and removed us from our traditional processes and ways of gathering communally. In our modern day society, we have a complete absence of any kind of market transition from boyhood to manhood. Maybe you get your driver's license or you go to university or get your first drink, but there is nothing really within most traditional Western culture that actually offers anything of significance and meaning where they're able to step in and figure out who they are and what they stand for and develop a sense of personal direction and responsibility for their lives. Because up until that point, they've been under the care and the guidance and the shelter of their parents and other community leaders. So this is an opportunity to signify them stepping into their own power, stepping into their own belief systems, and claiming a deeper, a more radical sense of responsibility for their lives and the direction that they're leading it. I think the term toxic masculinity is partially a byproduct of the loss of rites of passage. When I think of the term toxic masculinity, I think of where in society we are looking for a healthy masculine response to a situation, but we are finding adolescent behavior. And in those situations where that's coming up, we're lacking a rooted sense of maturity, a rooted sense of responsibility. And I don't personally love the term toxic masculinity because I think we already have a big enough gap in an understanding of what a healthy masculinity means, that the more we use a term like toxic masculinity, the more we actually alienate many men from being able to explore what a healthy sense of masculinity looks and feels like. There are more and more young men who are feeling lost, who are feeling directionless, who lack a sense of accountability and personal responsibility for leading their lives in the direction that they desire. And this is manifesting more and more as anxiety and depression and other symptoms of mental health, a sign of a culture gone astray. Moreover, the way we treat elders within our society is a sign of how disconnected we are from traditional community structures and values, because we place our elders often in senior care facilities and almost as, deplorables within our society, whereas in traditional cultures, they were the knowledge keepers, the wisdom holders, and they held and stewarded the ceremonies, helping to make sure that the information was passed down from generation to generation, and that the young people coming up could receive the knowledge and the guidance that they needed to be able to step into those roles of maturity for the later stages of their life. Rites of passage are critical for personal development, and a few of the ways that they impact us positively is developing a sense of identity, a sense of resilience, a sense of responsibility. I need to be able to understand who I am and have a pulse on where I want to go, and know that I have the capacity within me to lead my life effectively in the direction that I'm trying to go. They also create a sense of community cohesion, where it's the elders and the olders of the community who nurture and tend to and take care of the young individuals going through this life transition. And they're taking their time and energy to pass down the knowledge and the wisdom from previous generations. So it's really a gathering, an intergenerational gathering, an honoring of the passing of life, so that culture can continue to persist and so that life can continue to thrive. And in being seen and being recognized in that transition from boyhood to manhood can really support that maturation process. Because again, think back into our culture, how there isn't really a transition from adolescence to adulthood. And that's why largely when you look around, despite seeing a bunch of adult bodies, you'll largely see adolescents in adult bodies. Rites of passage also provide an opportunity for profound personal transformation and an emotional resilience as they move forward in life. These kind of experiences will help with that inner excavation, to get to understand the patterns that we've perpetuated in our lives, so that we can become conscious of the ways that the shadow or the unconscious is operating in our behavior day to day, and to start to cut those patterns out, to be able to confront the parts of us that we're terrified of or the parts that we're ashamed of within us, so that we can develop a sense of awareness around these things and an ability to regulate ourselves as we face these things. If you haven't got the theme by now, I think it's critical that we have rites of passages within society to be able to help with the maturation process of adolescence into adulthood, because that doesn't happen on its own. If you're listening to this and you've been growing up in a Western culture, you might relate that you had to figure it out on your own. Maybe you stumbled into the right mentor or you found yourself in the right situation. But for many of us, we had to develop our own model for this and find our own path. And there wasn't much facilitation or any kind of recognition of these critical junctures or critical points in our lives for initiation into deeper maturity, into deeper responsibility. I'm not suggesting that we look back to practices of 1,000 years ago and copy and paste them into our modern day situation, but there's an invitation for us to ask ourselves, what do we want modern day rite of passages to look like? How can we support young men and young women with a transition into adulthood? How do we deepen a sense of maturity in these individuals as they step into and carve their own path? And how do we honor the elders within our society and really understand and leverage and make the most of the wisdom that these knowledge keepers have? There are still ongoing Indigenous and non-Indigenous rite of passage vision quest experiences that you can learn more about. And if you're non-Indigenous and want to know more, one person I've learned a lot from is a man named Bill Plotkin, who's a depth psychologist that has written extensively on the topic and has a ton of resources. So you can check him out, and I'll link him down in the description below. Another option that really changed my life was a men's retreat. For me, going and experiencing a men's retreat, having been brought into this foreign environment around men to do things that really pushed my edge, sharpened me in a way that I wouldn't have been able to imagine. And it felt like a modern day rite of passage. It was that thing that I missed out on in my adolescence that I never received. So even as an adult, if this is something that speaks to you, there are all kinds of men's retreats happening around, and even our own, you can see in the description below and link access to that. There are available opportunities for you to lean into your edge and really step into a deeper sense of responsibility and find a deeper sense of direction for where you're leading your life. And if you're a father and want to be able to help provide that kind of space for your son, there are father-son gatherings, and there are opportunities to be able to do this kind of work with your son and help guide them, lead them before they get into the adult stages of life and are scrambling for a sense of direction. Or even starting with taking your son out for a multi-day hike in the woods with just the two of you or a small cohort, and make it meaningful, make it mean something, and really celebrate that transition from boyhood to manhood, and help them see that they are stepping in and claiming their own sense of responsibility. With this stage that we find ourselves in, there is an invitation for us as adults to get creative on how we want to be stewards for the next generation, on how we want to create modern day rites of passages and what we want that to look like. But I think it's a matter of engaging in the dialogue and taking collective and constructive action towards doing something, because the current model isn't working. Again, we have adults moving around this place, but are still lacking that sense of maturity and acting like adolescents. And what we deeply need is more maturity, more individual and collective responsibility, and a deep consideration about the direction that we're leading our lives and where we're moving as a culture. So these practices will be critical, from my opinion, in how we move forward, both individually and as a collective. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a modern day rite of passage? If you have, let us know down in the comments below how that was for you. And if you haven't, what do you think you would be interested in? What kind of rite of passages could we co-create in the modern world to effectively help guide our youth and our children through that maturation process as they move into adulthood? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Stu Murray signing off, and we'll see you next week.